Well, this is the first attempt to finally acknowledge that the wrong structure is in place in the context of prevention of suicide and dealing with the scourge of loss of life through suicide throughout the country. For many years we've seen much rhetoric and anger in these houses after instances of suicide and loss of life, but sadly, despite much good work throughout various organisations in the country, state, voluntary and so on, we're losing the battle in this regard. So what this policy does, it radically reforms that, it puts the correct structure in place and gives appropriate resources, which we feel can have a penetrative impact on the rates of suicide and ultimately reduce them by up to 30% over the next 10 years. In total, 85 million is the cost that we're putting on this, and that amount of money is going to be paid for from a levy for off sales in alcohol of 7.5%. My view as a relatively young person is that when people are going out to enjoy themselves, if they could be told that a contribution of 7.5% in addition to what they're used to spending was going to be ring-fenced for the prevention of suicide and mental health issues, I think rather than it being objected to, I think indeed it would be something that people would welcome. I think there's a lot of good work going on in the structure at the moment, but sadly the boxes aren't connected. I mean, people are doing excellent work throughout the country, as I said, the National Office for Suicide Prevention, the resource officers, the voluntary and charitable sector. But the reality is these boxes aren't connected, and sadly the figures speak for themselves, where we see that we're losing the battle nationally with figures up in recent years, some 30% since 2006. I think first of all we need to get the structure right. We need to give the appropriate resources in place. For example, the resource officers throughout the country number only 10. We feel that 40 are required there. We feel that the guidance counsellors must be immediately returned to all secondary schools. They need to be introduced in primary schools, and a series of other proposals that we do have. But ultimately it's about getting the correct structure right and applying the correct resources. Politicians don't have a solution to this issue. What we're responsible for is putting the right structure in place and making sure it has the resources that it needs to operate. It's nothing to do with the vintners. With the best will in the world to them, I mean, we all go out and enjoy ourselves at the weekend, those of us who can, or perhaps are making purchases in off sales. And when one considers the historically low levels that alcohol can be purchased from now through supermarkets and elsewhere throughout off licences, I think there is scope to raise some money, and I don't think anybody in society could have an objection to making a small contribution while they're enjoying themselves to deal with what is a national public health emergency.